Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, Fortifying Your AWS Kingdom. We're talking about security baselines meets AWS well-architected framework. Today, we are very fortunate. We've got Santosh, Rajesh, and myself as your presenters. Santosh is from AWS. He is the well-architected guru BDM. Rajesh is one of the owners and partners at Nimesa, and I am CEO and co-owner, co-founder of Wolk Technology. I think to start off with, we'll have Santosh take us through the journey through Well Architected. Over to you, Santosh.
Thank you, man. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Santosh Chaudhary. I'm Well Architected BD based out of APJ and based out of Melbourne, Australia, looking after APJ. So before we get started, I think the first question we have to ask ourselves confidently, are your system built following the best practices for the cloud? Hopefully, most of us would say yes. After all, we have great people in the team. Some of the common customer problems we help solve using AWS Well Architected are things like how do we respond to the security events, defining standards to manage daily operations, protecting your system, establishing control to detect customer security events, ensuring workload performance is correct and consistent, using IT, computing resources efficiently, and scaling to business needs without overspending. Moving to the next slide. Security is a top priority. Why would I want to focus on security? Because if you want to build workload that are trusted by your customer, then you have to demonstrate security across a broad range of scenarios. AWS provides services which are specific in nature, and it can help you address a wide range of security challenges for the customer, regardless of the size and industry. So in terms of AWS Well Architected, it helps you build and deploy faster by reducing firefighting, capacity management, using automation. You can experiment and release often. It helps you lower and mitigate risks. Understanding your risk in the architecture is very important, and addressing before they impact the business and distract the team. Making informed decisions where you are in 100% sure that your architectural discussions are taken in a conscious manner, and how they impact the overall business outcomes. And finally, making sure the teams are aware of the AWS best practices that we have learned from thousands of customer architecture on AWS. Now, a bit of a history to Well Architected framework. We started back in 2012 when AWS started asking customers, are you well architected? This reviews was primarily run by solution architect as part of the workload review. It initially consisted of 4 pillars, and the questions across 4 pillars. We've published a framework in 2015 with much comprehensive Q&A around 4 pillars of security, reliability, performance, and cost. And then added operational excellence in 2016 when we noticed that many of the operational related conversations are taking place in other pillars. So AWS worked to solve the problem for customers by creating an operational pillar on its own. We introduced APN partner who were trained to run reviews in 2017 and launched the self-service Well Architected tool in 2018. We launched various updates to the program and the tool. We launched the Well Architected tool and partner program in 2019. And every year we launch framework update across all pillars, more lenses, white papers in the tool to help our customer do comprehensive and thorough review. Moving to the next slide. So Well Architected is much more than just a set of best practices and console-based tool. It's a mechanism for our customers to do cloud journey, to modernize their workload. It allows you to learn the strategy and best practices of architecting in the cloud, measure your architecture using framework, Well Architected framework, and Well Architected lenses, and your organization's best practices using custom lens within the Well Architected tool. And this lets you improve your cloud architecture by addressing high-risk issues, identify and work on the improvement plan, using well-architected labs, through partners, through essays, and more. At AWS, we understand the value of educating our customers on architectural best practices. So the well-architected framework is a set of questions and design principle that runs across 6 pillars of operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. And along with the pillars of well-architected framework are well-architected lenses, which provide guidance with a focus of specific industry or technology domains, such as software as a service, or financial service industry, or high-performance computing, serverless, for the technology domain. And to evaluate the health of your workload, your answer serve as foundational questions based on the framework, pillars, and lenses. Last year, we also announced the reInvent, how to create your user-defined managed custom lenses to align with your organization, industry, and operational plans and internal processes. So you can create your own set of question sets in context and best practices as it relate to your own organization processes. Moving to the next slide. Now, with regards to the technology deployment or technology architecture, creating technology solutions works very similar to constructing like a physical building. If the foundation is not solid or strong, it may cause structural problem that undermine the integrity and function of the building. If you neglect any of the 6 pillars, which you can see through the transition, the slide, it can result in challenge to build a system that delivers functional requirement and meet your expectation. When you incorporate these pillars, it helps you produce stable and efficient system, allowing you to focus on the functional requirements. In very, very short or high level, things like security, it helps you ability to protect your information system assets while delivering business value through risk assessment and mitigation strategies. In case of reliability, it's the ability of the system to recover from infrastructure or service failure, dynamically acquiring computing resources to meet demand and mitigate the disruptions such as misconfiguration or transient network issues. In case of performance issues, the ability to use computing resources to efficiently meet the system requirements and maintain that efficiency for demand changes and technology evolve as the technology evolve. Ability to avoid or eliminate the cost in terms of the cost optimization. Finally, in the sustainability, helping cost AWS using AWS to reduce your footprint and best practices to improve the sustainability of your workload. Now, with regards to the custom lenses, to fully evaluate your workload and industry scenarios, you can use applicable lenses. When if you can just build up the slide, thank you. You can use available lenses from well-architecture framework along with the management and governance lens. The well-architected lens extend the guidance offered by AWS, and it allows you to specifically focus on industry and technology domains such as machine learning, analytics, serverless, high-performance computing, IoT, or the financial services. It's important to note that not all the lenses are available in the tool currently. More lenses are added over time, including the white papers, including the review options for our customers to use. Moving to the next slide. So in terms of what is available, you have 3 parts: content, which is the combination of framework, design principle, pillars, which has design principle, questions, and best practices, tools, which uses framework to carry reviews like workload, dashboard, reports, review approach, and finally the data, tools and data, and which consist of improvement plan. The data you can have from the review, including documents and outcomes, review ratings, answers, which you can use to further improve the overall architecture. Moving to the next slide. So how do we get started with well-architected? Now, from our experience of conducting thousands of workload, if you can move to the next slide, please. From our experience of running the well-architected reviews for thousands of our customers, it is important to have a business leader sponsorship in pursuing the architectural best practices. Part of this includes having the right people in the room and during the review process as a whole. Performing AWS well-architected framework review is a collaborative process. And this requires preparation, this requires data gathering, alignment with multiple teams. And as a good step, we recommend team review this well-architected white paper to have a understanding of some of the questions or discussions which can happen in the review process. Identifying areas of customization as well is very important as part of the overall review. Within the review itself, it's very important that we define what is workload. So for the sake of definition, I would like to call it out. Workload is defined as a collection of interrelated applications, infrastructure, policy, governance, and operation running on AWS that provides a business value. So as a part of the program, the AWS account team will work with you to help you define significant workload for the review. And this could be something which can cause damage to business reputation or revenue stream, foundational business applications like payroll or benefits, foundational infrastructure services like in networking, directory services, security services, aggressive R2 and RPO, data security critical compliances like HIPAA, PII, PCI. So all these can be important initiator for a review process. So once you have done a well-architected reviews for the workload, what you need is the improvement plan. So these improvement plans are recommended improvement items identified as part of the workload with summaries. Items recommended for improvements are rated as high, medium, or low based on the risk across the pillar, and then steps to remediate each of the medium risk or high risk, including links to additional resources. These are part of the improvement plans. As I mentioned earlier, over the last few years, we have released a number of lenses for our customers to dive deep into their specific industry or business case. Some of the lenses which were announced in the last few years were like DevOps lens, data analytics lens, governance, government lens for the government organization, mobility lens, migration lens, and these allows you to have additional focus on the specific industry or the domain you are working with as part of the well-architected review. And we will continue to add more lenses as new technology evolve our customers are to help our customers stay well-architected and secure their overall automation. So where do we go from here? How do we get started with well-architected and improve the overall posture of your workload? So the first thing is identify the customer sponsor for the well-architected. Identify the significant workload which has significance from a business outcome perspectives. Discuss the timeline and resources needed to complete the review. Completing the well-architected training is important. Many of these trainings are available on Skill Builder free of cost for our customers. Leverage a partner to do that. They are especially the well-architected partners. Understand the business context for the review and then schedule the review accordingly. With that, I'm going to be handing over to Wayne to take us through how Wolk technology helps our customer stay well-architected and secure using their automation. Oh, Wayne, over to you.
Thanks, Santosh. I think we'll start with a very exciting, quick little poll. So I've put that out to everyone now. We'll give that a few seconds and get everyone to quickly click a few buttons. We'll give that another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll move on. There's still active answers coming through, so I'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Okay, I don't see any more answers coming through, so we'll end that one there. Thank you. Okie dokie. So, who are we? Wolk Technology is the global well-architected partner of the year. That's me in the middle. That's my business partner, James, on the right-hand side of the photo. And we had to fly to Vegas to go and get a little plaque. That was very exciting. But what that proves is when we say we know about well-architected, we've been there, we've got the prize. Now, why do I as a customer need to fortify my AWS kingdom? So according to MyOb, 60% of mid-sized Australian businesses have been victims of a cyber attack, while 43% of all cybercrime is being directed at SMB. So that's a lot of attacks heading towards our companies. Now, in Australia, the average cost of these events varies greatly from 46 to 97 plus K. But in the US and other parts of the world, that could be well over 200,000 for the average incident. Now, statistics shared by AWS show that an average incident takes between 40 and 80 labor hours from their side to manage and resolve. And in our experience, that's another 80 to 200 labor hours from the client side. I'm not saying that's how long it takes. I'm saying that's how many man hours are involved. So that includes managers, engineers, meetings, all the rest of it. It is a significant cost and time constraint from your side to deal with these kinds of things. So it's much better to resolve that before we actually get there. Now, AWS security is a shared responsibility. So we need to make sure that customers realize what they're responsible for and what AWS is responsible for. So AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. So anything that sits behind a service or anything that you can go in and use is AWS's responsibility, essentially. Anything that you configure within that is your responsibility as the client. So think of, for example, EC2. It's AWS's responsibility to make sure that everything is functioning and your instance can boot. But if you then take your instance and go and open up ports to the world to host a website, the security of that is not AWS's responsibility, that's your responsibility. If you have a database, an RDS database, and you go and open it up to the world so that some application out there in the world can communicate with the RDS database, and all of a sudden you get hacked and all your data is on the internet, well, that was your responsibility to secure that communication. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer there. Now, AWS is really, really simple. You can just go click, click, finished, and everything's good. No, not really. There's lots of parts of AWS that's user-friendly and straightforward, but beware of false simplicity. We've had many customers come to us where they've followed a guide and they've launched an account and they've put some resources in there, and then all of a sudden they get hacked. Why? Because they just blindly followed a guide. They didn't think it through. They didn't take guidance from an expert partner, and they end up in a position where they've been exposed. What we also see quite often is where customers go and get contractors off of contract websites. The contractor comes in, they are asked to do a job, they do that job, but they do that job to the minimum standard with the minimum amount of labor involved. And what ends up happening is the customer gets a subpar experience because they end up with security holes all over the place. So our advice is rely on a trusted AWS partner like Wolk Technology to meticulously address every aspect of your security. choose a partner that is part of the well-architected program, and hopefully you'll have a much better long-term experience. Now, Santosh has already touched on the 6 pillars of the well-architected principles. In our experience for SMB, the 2 most important ones is security and cost optimization. In SMB, cost optimization is always top of mind, or cost is always top of mind, but security is just as important, if not more important. Because if your data and your application and your resources are not secure, then your business isn't going to exist for long. Now, why take part in a well-architected review? The acronym for well-architected review used to be WAR, and that became unpopular, so then it became WAFR, and I think a lot of people are referring to it as WAR again. So the 2 acronyms are interchangeable, depending on who you speak to. But a well-architected review is a systematic evaluation of your AWS architecture against best practices. It helps identify vulnerabilities, and it supports you in your efforts to attain certain compliances like ISO 27001, SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA, etc., etc. Now, when we went through our ISO 27001, we worked with the compliance wrangler and the guys who come out and do the actual certification, and we figured out that using our implementation of Amazon Workspaces, which involves and was built on well-architected principles, that gets any customer to 57% of their ISO 27001 without lifting a finger. So if customers wanted to, for example, attain some kind of compliance framework, using well-architected principles and implementing them properly could get you more than half of the way there. And it is really, really simple to do. And the guidance is out there. Just reach out to somebody in the well-architected community. AWS recommends well-architected reviews annually or after major changes. So if you've done a major release, or you've changed from Microsoft SQL to MySQL or whatever, any kind of major change in your environment, do a well-architected review. You'll be amazed how many times there's little things during that migration process that get missed or get put in place just as a temporary measure, but it ends up being a permanent measure. So you've gone through the process, you've done a well-architected review, you've secured your environment, it's cost optimized, everything's working as it should. Then what? We walk away and high five? No. What we need to do is keep that environment well architected, and that is key, because scope creep and security creep and all the rest of the creeps come in, and that well-architected environment a week down the line could be in a bad position again. So you need to put something in place that is going to help you adhere to those security baselines. The answer is SCALENOC, and we'll get back to that in a little bit. In well-architected, there is this concept of automating well-architected and staying automated with well-architected standards. Now, there's a lot of tools out there, and some do part of the automation, some do all of the automation, and then there's a nice mix of in between. In our experience, we recommend that you have a subject matter expert, as in a well-architected partner, that guides you through that process. I wouldn't recommend that customers go for a fully automated, well-architected tool. Reason being, it could be potentially dangerous or disruptive to your business if you do not understand what those automations are actually doing in your account. So if you're not technical enough to understand what they're doing, don't use the tool. Automation in well-architected is amazing when you use it for the right things, like monitoring, alerts, observability, and so forth. But expertise is vital. So our recommendation, use an automation tool that is going to monitor and alert, but then use an expert to decide what the solution needs to be, what the remediation needs to be. So if you get an alert that says, hey, these management ports are open, take guidance. Don't just go and close the port, because it might actually be something valid. or in fact, it might be that a developer's just opened a port overnight and you don't know about it, and it's now caught it. So speak to your partner, and let's guide you through those events. Okay, everyone's favorite, funding. Comes with a territory for small business. I'm not going to go into this. I don't think Santos has the time and the day to go through this, but consult your account manager to explore your funding options. Well-architected credits are available, and they could cover up to 10% of your ARR. There are many other programs available: Activate, POC, Ola, MAP. There's loads available. Speak to your AWS account manager if that is something you want to go and have a look at. Now, Wolk have done a lot of well-architected reviews in the SMB market. We think of ourselves as experts in relation to taking the well-architected principles and applying them to small business, because there are some things that don't mesh exactly from an enterprise environment to a small business. So we manipulate those for you so that it all makes sense and the well-architected applies in your environments. So how do we do it? So when we run a well-architected review, we start with a visualization, because this 9 times out of 10 is the first time a customer sees what they're paying for. And it's the first time they go, I think I actually understand what this is now. I understand how this fits together. So we do a visualization. During that visualization, we can look at things like security, open ports, how things talk to each other. We can look at modernization of things like instances and so forth. And we can do on-the-fly cost optimization. I'll show you an example of that in just a second. Then we run through your console and we highlight some relevant parts and say, okay, look, you're not using this service. We'll explain in the well-architected review why you should be. And okay, cool, you've got this configured. That's fantastic. And I'll explain later why that's good. We then go and complete the 6 pillars of the well-architected review, all 57 questions. Once that's done, we'll go away. We will create the scope of works, and then we will review that scope of works with you. It's a very high-level scope of works, and it will include some components that are specific to your environment, and the rest will just be the well-architected standards. Once we've gone through that, you as the customer agree to the scope of works, and then we will go and implement it together. Now, the key here is to maintain those well-architected baselines in an ongoing fashion. And that is what a lot of customers that we've done well-architected reviews for in the past have come back and said, but it's 6 months down the line, I'm not compliant anymore. What's happened? And they then want to go through a well-architected review again. So let's rather maintain the baselines and always be compliant. Now, this is a sample visualization of an account. It's a very simple account. But when we go in here, we can have a look at the buckets. We can have a look whether the buckets are encrypted. We can look at the instances. We can look at what the cost differentiator would be if we take an instance, let's say, for example, from a T2 to a T3, or an older generation to a newer generation. It'll show us the performance metrics within that change. It'll show us the cost. We can also see whether disks are encrypted, RDS. We can look at the security groups. There's a whole lot of stuff we can do here, but the 2 most important parts is the security visualization and the on-the-fly cost optimization. SCALENOC. Now, on our walls in our office, we have a NOC, Network Operations Center, that we've been using for the past almost 8 years. We then spoke to one of the people in AWS who is in the Scale group, and he said to us when he saw our NOC, he said, that's absolutely fantastic. That seems to adhere to pretty much all the well-architected principles. That would be fantastic if I could give that to my clients in the Scale sector. We then said, okay, that's cool, but to get our monitoring, you have to be part of our organization. You have to have managed services from us. And that's where SCALENOC was born, because basically what we did is we took that NOC of ours, we modified it, put it on Marketplace, and made it available to anybody in public. Now, like we've already said, once a standard is set, it needs monitoring. So once we've done the well-architected review, we need to monitor it. That's where this comes in. unintended consequences is a term that we've coined. That's where we look at things like provisioned IOPS, RDS extended support, where things cost you money. We've got countless examples where customers have gone in and provisioned something off marketplace. And for example, a VPN solution from a well-known brand. As that gets deployed, two things happen. It provisions that instance with provisioned IOP disks, and it opens port 22 to the world. In SMB, you do not need provisioned IOP disks for a VPN server. It's simply not needed. And opening port 22 to a VPN server, which is again not needed, just opens a security risk which doesn't need to be there. We've seen many other clients that have provisioned IOPS disks where they don't need it. RDS instances that suddenly have gone more expensive. They don't know why. It's because RDS extended support has been kicked in. There's a whole bunch of stuff within that, which SCALENOC will highlight to you. So let's hand over to Brian for a second, and this is a recording, so hopefully this is nice and smooth and it works.
Vin, I can't hear any sound here.
There's no audio.
There's no audio.
Technology. Okay. So let me cover what Brian was saying essentially there. So the crux of that is that within SCALENOC, we then highlight when there's issues. So for example, let's take a classic example. A customer's deployed SCALENOC and they have a developer sitting elsewhere, not within their office. They've got a developer remotely. They ask the developer to make a change to the application or to their solution, and the developer goes, okay, fantastic, I'll get that done. The owner of the business goes to bed. They might be in different time zones, whatever the case may be. And the dev goes in and he goes, okay, cool, I need to make this change. To do that, I'm going to, I don't know, run up a virtual machine, and I'm going to have to log into that virtual machine so that I can get to the database to make the changes I need to make. Fantastic. All that happens. The next day, the manager wakes up, he looks at his environment, and he doesn't see anything wrong, but his application's working, so he's really, really happy. When he goes and looks at his email, he'll have an alert, and the alert will say management ports have been opened. And that would look something like one of these here, these red ones. Based on that information, the client can then go to his developer and say, hey, dear developer, can you please resolve this issue? It seems that your work last night has exposed us to security risk. At that point there, if the developer can resolve the issue, if they have the knowledge to do that, they can resolve the issue, the alert will close, it'll go green on here, high fives, everyone's happy. If, however, the client cannot get that resolved themselves, they can then hit reply on that email alert they got, and they can get support from Wolk Technology and our experienced staff. There is also an application that is available for SCALENOC, so clients can actually see their environment like this. They can look at open and recently closed alerts. There will be a monthly executive summary, sanity check, email that'll go out to the clients. And then also the other critical thing here is budgets, because a lot of clients in the small business market and also potentially in enterprise, because the person that wants to see this level of information is not necessarily the person that sets the budgets. SCALENOC will allow you to set a budget outside of the AWS console. And all of these dashboards you see are outside of the AWS console within the SCALENOC application. But that means that you as the manager can log in there, set your budget, and then get alerted against your budget. That is a budget just for you. If somebody else has set another budget in the AWS portal, this doesn't affect that. This is the budget for SCALENOC. And then obviously you can go in and adjust that as you need to. But that's also another critical one, not only from a budgetary point of view, but also from a security point of view. if the account for whatever reason gets compromised, most of the time what happens is they then go and launch a couple of instances. They do some crypto mining, and then we end up with a budget that goes through the roof, which you will then get alerts of, and that'll help you resolve that situation. Okay, just a quick reminder that at the end of the presentation, we will do a survey, and of the participants who complete the survey, one will randomly be chosen to win an Echo Show 15, and that'll be announced on LinkedIn. Please direct message me with your details and we'll get that delivered to you. Rajesh, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Wayne. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Rajesh. I'm one of the co-founders in Nimesa Technologies, and I take care of the technology part here. So Nimesa is a cloud-native application recovery platform. So as we are talking about like well-architected framework, let me go and show a kind of a typical application where people are embracing more and more cloud-native services of AWS, and then helps you to build a more robust, reliable application. And then one of the things which we spoke is about the security practices, compliances. So when we look at the whole application diagram, so it has a lot of IaaS as well as PaaS services, where like what we see is more and more configuration, and then the use case specific services which Amazon rolls out is being consumed for an application. Now, in this case, as part of the well-architected framework, once we define an RTO and RPO, the application, there should be a strategy in automation to put those requirements so that the application RPO and RTO are met. It could be there could be a compliance or regulatory need also, where which some of the compliance requires the DR strategy to be there, which the application should be available and run from a different seismic zone or a different region. So when it comes to all these complexities, Nimesa comes into picture where it simplifies the complete automation part, one of the well-architected frameworks like automation, where we automate the complete periodic capturing of all these configurations along with the data, so that you are able to meet your RPO and RTO needs when there is a requirement. It could be a real disaster where there is a cyber attack to your AWS account, or it could be like there is a requirement from compliance side to run from your DR region for a particular period of time, or it could be also to have like a good hygiene to periodically test your business continuity practices periodically in a different region, so or the same region. So Nimesa brings all these automation into picture where you could meet your RPO and RTO needs based on policy driven things. So as one of the security pillar talks about is to protect your data and the configuration of the application. So the whole application is automatically discovered and protected based on the definition in a policy based way. So let's look at a typically any application. When you look at any application, there is a data layer where it includes your databases, which could be hosted in a EC2 or in a RDS kind of services. And then there could be like object storages or file storages like S3, FS or FSX. So where these are the data layers, but over that above, there are hundreds of components that an application depend on for you to have a robust recovery strategy, like all the way from your network where it has like VPC, subnet, security group routings, or it could also have like auto scaling layer like ALBs, NLBs, and auto scaling, and then your API gateways or your Lambda functions, serverless architecture. So, and then there are like your application depends on your some of the variables or the data that is stored in your secret manager or your parameter stores. So for the application to serve traffic and user to use the application when there is a DR, the holistically or the complete infrastructure needs to be recovered, not just the data. And Nimesa covers like hundreds of AWS services at odd layer, so that when you could have, there is a requirement to do a DR activity, Nimesa automatically brings up the complete infrastructure as it was in the production in a same region or a different region, or if you want to keep it in an air gap way in a different account altogether. When the account is compromised, you have a business continuity to run from that. So you could factor in based on your threat vectors and then recreate the complete infrastructure along with the data in the DR when there is a disaster. So let me quickly give a quick overview of Nimesa architecture. So the Nimesa is like purely built on purpose built for AWS in a cloud native way, where everything is done, managed and defined by IAM roles and policies. And then the whole infrastructure is monitored and captured periodically by the Nimesa platform using the IAM roles and permission that was associated with this instance. So it completely automates the discovery of the complete application so that your complete app graph is built when you and then you can do a complete recovery based on applications and the RPO defined for each of these applications. So, and it also comes from handles the cost optimization part also, where at the DR side, you are not really kind of spending anything, where there is no compute, and all you are going to have is a kind of a additional backup copy, and then Nimesa periodically captures the complete infrastructure. And then when there is a need for drill or a real DR, the complete infrastructure is recreated in a single click on the DR side, so that you are able to go back in time how it was maybe an hour ago. If there is a cyber attack an hour ago, so then you could go back the previous point in time to recreate the complete infrastructure. And if the business demands like my RPO is near zero, Nimesa automatically uses the cloud best practices to replicate those services which requires like a near zero RPO kind of situation, so that and during your DR or failover activity, it automatically gives you a the failover part as well as failback part when you want to come back to the original DC region. So if you see, the whole thing is orchestrated in a cloud native way, and then these are checkpoint based replication of data. So you could go back in time when there is really a requirement to go back when there is a cyber attack, or if there is a account is compromised where I want to recover entirely in a clean room recovery kind of situation in a different account. And then it supports not only the data, the complete all the past services which typically an application depends on for it to recover the infrastructure. I'm just trying to summarize how it ties to a well-architected framework of AWS. So it is completely automating your backup. When I say backup, not just the data, both the data and the configurations, so that the complete application blueprint is periodically captured, so that when there is a requirement, it could be replayed. And then compliance also requires the policy-based management of all these critical applications. So it becomes a central console to do a kind of a policy-based automation for all your critical workloads. And then you could templatize all the recovery scenarios, be it a clean room recovery in isolated network in the same region, or it could be like the compliance demands to have a cross-region DR, where I want to have a seamless cross-region DR of my complete application workload, the DR region. And then also it's like kind of chaos engineering, periodically testing your DR readiness, that the well-architected framework talks about the automation part, where you could schedule the periodic DR drills in a non-invasively, where the complete infrastructure is created and then allowed for testing, and then the whole infrastructure is teared down when it is not really required. And since whole thing is automated, and then the whole infra is provisioned when it is really required, so the cost of owning the DR really comes down, and then there is also no upfront cost of maintaining the DR infrastructure, and then also ensuring that all the configuration changes, which we see when we talk to a lot of customers, is like keeping the DR site or maintaining a code infrastructure as a code is tedious, because they are monthly they are rolling out enhancements to their applications, or some changes to the cloud infrastructure keeps on happening, where keeping up with those changes is really impossible for them to keep the DR. So that's when Nimesa comes in, where you are continuously keeping the blueprint of the application, so that you will be able to roll out without needing to invest anything on your custom scriptings.
Awesome. Thanks, Rajesh. Okay, so the last thing that we've got is a little bit of Q&A. If anybody wants to ask any questions, give me 1 second and I'll open that up. We'll give it about 30 seconds, 40 seconds for any questions to come in. If not, we will bid you farewell. Santosh, any parting wisdom from your side?
So thanks, Wayne, and thanks, Rajesh, for showcasing what Nimesa can offer and how Wolk technology can help our customers be more secure. Lastly, if I want to mention one thing, well-architected review is not a one-time activity. And as Wayne mentioned, this needs to be done to ensure that as the organization grows, as the landscape changes or evolves, this needs to be done in a periodic manner. And that's why you need a system which can help you baseline and do a continuous monitoring. There are a number of automated tools from the partners like Rajesh, in this case from Nimesa, as well as Wayne. My request to you, to the audience, will be go through these tools and see how we can help you better to make your environment more secure and more consistent, and take care of the changes from the business outcome perspectives. Thank you for attending. Really appreciate everyone's time here. Over to you, Wayne.
Thanks, Santosh. So there's only one question, so we will call it there. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Cheers, Rajesh. Cheers, Santosh. Cheers, Brian.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Wayne.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.